What's going on, everybody? My name is Greg Peters. You are tuned into the Car Passion channel, and today I'll be showing you how I modified my tombstone to add gauges and a tablet in the Turbo Miata. I'll start by going over the equipment I'm using. This is an Innovate Motorsports G2 analog boost gauge, Innovate Motorsports MTXL Plus wideband, and the heart of the system, the Raspberry Pi Dash from Pals Racing. And Pals Racing was so kind to hook me up with this tablet to try out on my build, which I'm super excited about. This thing's got all kinds of functions on it. I have no idea how to use it, but I'm gonna figure it out. The link down below in the description will show you where to buy all this stuff, and I'm gonna explain why I went with a PiDash over my original plan, which was to run an Android tablet. I was gonna run an Android tablet and just run a program or an app called MS Droid. MS Droid communicates with Megasquirt via Bluetooth. It's pretty easy to use. It's nice to make changes on the fly, but the big advantage of the PiDash is it can run Tuner Studio. So I'm gonna have full access to everything. It's just like running a laptop basically, except I'm gonna have it all in the tablet in my car. I can tune anything, and it's an interface that I'm already familiar with. I don't really have to relearn it. The reason I'm running a tablet period in my car is there are several things that I want to be able to monitor on the track. Things like intake air temperature, maybe exhaust gas temperature if I'm doing a little street tuning, oil temperature, oil pressure, a lot of things that I don't want to just have several gauges all over the car, have to run them all the time. It looks a little bit ricey. So on the track, I can set the tablet up with whatever gauges I want, different colors, different styles, all that good stuff. And then on the street, if I'm just chilling, I can turn the tablet off, it's blank, and I'll have just my essential gauges, which is boost and AFR. I don't really know too much about the PiDash yet because honestly I haven't even powered it up, and even on the initial startup I will be using a laptop just because I want to stick with what I'm familiar with on the first startup and break in, and then later on I'll power this thing up and probably come up with some kind of tutorial video on how to use this if you want to put one in your car. Let's talk about the tombstone modification first. Now, as you can see, I'm already finished with mine. It took quite a bit of trial and error and little tweaks to get it just the way I wanted it, make it clean enough. It's not perfect. I'm not claiming it's show car quality, but I want these videos to be kind of the push from the nest for you guys, so you can use some of my techniques but improve upon them and, you know, make your cars even more epic than mine. So let me show you what I got going. The first thing you'll notice is that little cross member that sits below your AC controls is completely missing. Takes about 15 seconds to get that out with a Dremel. I've also added some nice trim around the entire opening. All that is some fat silicone vacuum line that I cut and slid onto the tombstone. Now, it didn't just slide right on with no modification. You will have to make a cut around the entire tombstone, so you have like a thin piece of plastic to put this vacuum line onto, and I actually think it doesn't look too bad. I mean, my car is by no means a show car, so it's good enough. This little waviness is because the shape of the tombstone is actually a little funky right there, so you could get trick and make this cut a little bit straighter and like I said, make it even better than mine. But that's really the extent of the tombstone modification that I needed. For the upper gauge mounts, from the factory you've got your little air director, or eyeball vent as it's called. Start by just popping it out, which doesn't require any tools. Just push it from the back. Woo. You're left with this, which to extract the eyeball vent, there are some little clips. Stick a little baby flathead in there. Take the vent itself out, and then pop your trim piece back on. Now you can take any standard 52mm gauge and it'll fit in there. Some are gonna be looser than others. Obviously this one's a little bit loose, but there's a very easy fix for that. Just take a little piece of electrical tape. A lot of times it doesn't take very much. Sometimes you don't even have to go all the way around the gauge. There we go. Now it's quite a bit harder to rotate. I don't want it so tight that I can't get it back out, but I don't want it to rotate while I'm driving either. And there you have it. Looks factory if you ask me. I mounted the head unit in the lower din. Normally it's up in the middle right there, but to make room for the tablet, I had to mount it all the way on the bottom. That's as simple as just taking a couple screws out and remounting it. For the tablet mount, I just pretty much used what I had laying around. You can see I've got a couple foam blocks, those red things right there. The tablet actually just sits right on top of the head unit against that foam. And when I install the tombstone, the rubber trim pushes on the very edges of the tablet and holds it in place pretty good. And then up on top, I had a little bit of a gap, which you could see all the wiring back there before I added this little plate. It was just a little plate I cut out of ABS plastic and then put a couple of screws into existing holes to hold it in place to kind of cover up the guts that were behind there. Up in the top vents, I used to run my gauges with the wiring going through this gap right here, and it would get really pinched. I didn't like it, so this time around I put a hole in each of the vents for the wiring. I do still have a heater in my car, or I should say I still have the blower fans. I have a switch here that can run the fans on low, off, or high. I'll probably have to mount that switch somewhere else for now. And then I just manually open or close the heater core if I want heat or just air. So first the tablet goes in, just chills right there. Then the tombstone goes on. And once the tombstone's in place, the tablet is, I mean, it's solid. It's not going anywhere. It's kind of trapped inside of the tombstone. Now, of course, on the final install, I will have had to have my gauges wired up to do this, but the harnesses will end up going through these holes in the vents. And one lesson I learned when I was building the 1.6 is leave plenty of slack on your gauge wiring, because when you go to remove your tombstone later, you have to pull the gauges out to get access to the screws inside there, and if the harnesses are tight, you're like pulling on them and you could damage them. So just leave yourself plenty of slack. There's a ton of room behind here. You can always kind of coil them up and just push them off to the side. And that's about it for the tablet mount. You can see the gap I was talking about there, and I've got my little backing plate back there to kind of disguise it a little bit. I'll probably clean this up eventually, but as you guys can probably imagine, I'm really antsy to just get this thing started, and I needed to get at least the AFR gauge in there to be able to start it. Now, of course, I can't power any of this up yet because I don't have the battery in the car and I don't have the Mega Squirt in yet, so I'm still working on a little bit of electronics, but for now, hopefully this video will help you guys out if you guys are interested in running a similar setup. Alright guys, well that's all I got for the tablet mounting video. I know some of you guys don't really like the shorter videos, but the way I see it is some of this stuff I really like to break into separate videos. It's going to be easier for people to find later as a reference tool, and that's really what this whole series and my whole channel is about, is I'm trying to build a tool for you guys, or for future you guys, that you can search online and find specific topics and specific jobs to reference versus doing 20-25 minute videos and covering a bunch of stuff in one video. So I try to go back and forth, but we got some short ones coming up. So I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you learned something. Don't forget to subscribe if you are new, and I will see you in the next one. Peace out.
Back from the dead.